We're in the middle of political season, and I know everybody's campaigning on different platforms. This week and next week's going to be all hell when next day comes. If any candidate, local, state, federal, can devise a plan to defend the Hail Mary, I will vote for you in the election. Please, can we defend the Hail Mary one time in 2024?
Oh, you still smarting over that, huh?
I sat at my kitchen table for 4 hours after that game ended, staring
I don't blame you.
at the wall.
When I'm alone in my room, sometimes I stare at the wall, and in the back of my mind, I hear Hail Mary call. All right, let me stop.
If I were you, I would not watch the replay, because if you see the different angles of the replay, it's a lot worse.
I've seen all the replays of that play.
Oh, man. We're not going to get too deep into it, but that's one of the worst defended Hail Marys I've ever seen.
Just from the start of it to the end of it, which is all bad, and they deserve to lose.
Shout out to Rick Stevenson.
No, don't shout him out. No, don't shout him out. No, don't do that. He don't need any props. I mean, if you a Commandments fan, yeah, but anybody else, no.
Did you say a Commandments fan?
Yeah, the Washington Commandments, or the commies as we call them.
The commies.
Okay.
Yeah, welcome to the show tonight. I'm Kendrick, who wants to defend the Hail Mary. I'm joined by Jared Hoffman. Ken Rashad, he's an optimistic Grambling fan. I don't know why he is. And Chris Stevens, which I can't repeat, I don't think what he said in his bio there. Can we say that on the air?
It's a Rick James song.
She blew my mind 69 times.
It's a Rick James song, but it's also in reference to how many points my alma mater gave up to South Carolina State this weekend. Ironically enough, the last time South Carolina State scored that many points, 2011 against Delaware State University. In my end is my beginning, as T.S. Eliot once wrote. Yeah. Bad times.
Yep. Yeah, packed show tonight. We're going to recap the weekend, talk about all the players who balled out this week, and get into a coach who got in some trouble for having a potty mouth. Ken Rashad was all about that. So first off,
wow.
Stab,
Yeah, man.
stab.
Yeah, but first, we're going to get into our Who Balled Out This Week comic book edition, our third volume of that one. And for me, the obvious player that comes to mind for Who Balled Out is Virginia Union running back Jada Byers. He ran for 324 yards, scored 6 touchdowns, in a big-time win over Jared Hoffman's Bowie State Bulldogs over the weekend. With all those yards and touchdowns he got on Saturday, he became the Panthers' all-time leading rusher, not in that one game, but over a career, with 3,500 yards. Jada Byers is my player who balled out for the week. Up next is Eric Phoenix, the quarterback for South Carolina State. They put it on Delaware State, as Chris Stevens alluded to in our intro. He threw for 341 yards and accounted for 5 total touchdowns in their blowout win over the mighty Hornets on Saturday. They're going to be a contender, though, talking about South Carolina State. We'll talk about them later on in the week because they have a big game coming up on Thursday night, on Halloween night, that could decide the MEAC. Then we got Walter Wilbon of Florida Memorial. He had 96 yards rushing, 136 yards receiving on 7 catches, and 2 touchdowns in the win for Florida Memorial over the weekend. This was Jared Hoffman's person for Who Balled Out. So he's always looking for the unheralded players, and Walter Wilbon was one of those. And finally, Ken Rashad, he picked Jamari Gassett. The FAMU receiver had 5 receptions for 118 yards and 1 receiving touchdown. He also had a punt return that win for a touchdown, and Florida A&M's 24-6 win over Southern on Saturday. They're extending their winning streak at Bragg Memorial Stadium to 22 straight games dating back to when they played in the MEAC. So, fellas, what do we think of all these gentlemen who balled out for the week? Starting with Chris.
Well, I appreciate Jamari Gaskin for doing what he did. Just unfortunately, the Tigers couldn't take advantage of Southern's demise.
Yeah, that means
Jamari,
the
I
Bayou
appreciate
Classic
you, brother. I really do.
Yeah, that means the Bayou Classic won't be great again.
Well, there's still a chance for it to be great again. Right now, it'll be good, but some things have to happen in order for it to be great. So that's why I'm the eternal optimist, because there's still, I can still see light way out in the distance, but it's still there.
It's definitely out there in the distance too, man.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I chose Eric Phoenix because, well, you got to give credit where credit is due. And everyone has made, a lot about Chennis Berry bringing the young men from Benedict with him from Columbia to Orangeburg. And, they're Division II players. What can they do at the Division I level? You're seeing what they're doing at the Division I level. A whole lot right about now. I mean, they are 5-2. They've won their last 4 games. And they've won their 4 games in a variety of ways that lead you to believe that this is a team that can contend for a MEAC championship this year. I mean, they won at Tennessee Tech, sweated out it was Tennessee Tech, sweated out the last second field goal to win there. They beat Fort Valley State like they were supposed to. And I guess you could argue that they beat Delaware State like they were supposed to. Shouts out to James. Yeah, y'all had that industrial strength bug spray, buddy. I mean, Raid, Decon, whatever, the Black Flag, they used it all. It was ugly. But yeah, Eric Phoenix deserves a lot of credit. I mean, yeah, he actually transferred to Murray State from Benedict, and then when Coach Berry got the job at South Carolina, he asked Eric would he come to Orangeburg, and Eric did, and that is a plus for a team that had problems passing the ball last year. I mean, crazy problems passing the ball last year. They were, I think, if they weren't last in the conference and being passing last year, they were next to last. So now you have a quarterback, at least for another year, who can throw the ball, and you've got receivers, that like Caden Hyde who can go get that thing. So this South Carolina State team is really good, and you're only as good as your quarterback. Right now, Eric Phoenix is one of the top quarterbacks in Black college football, so that's why I chose him.
Yeah, Jared, what should we know about Walter Wilbon beyond his great stats from the weekend?
Well, as you said, he had 135 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, and 96 rushing yards and 1 touchdown. The thing that's most impressive to me, last year, he had 115 receiving yards on 15 receptions. Before this game, he had 9 receptions for 80 yards. So that's showing you that he's becoming more of a dual running back, a dual force in the ground game and in the receiving game. This is a season high. He set a new season high with 231 yards from scrimmage. He's becoming that all-purpose back that NFL teams want to see from you. Not saying that he's NFL ready. I'm just saying that he's becoming more versatile, and a lot of running backs could take, notes on what he's doing right now. And not to steal your player, Kendrick, but if Jada Byers is not on an NFL training camp roster next year, I promise you, I will be on the front lines. And me as a Bowie State grad, I'm saying this. Kendrick talked about him setting the new career record in Virginia Union for rushing yards. You didn't also mention that he also set a new single game record for rushing yards, which he already set when he had 319 against Valdosta State, and set a new record with 6 rushing touchdowns that had stood for over 100 years in Virginia Union history. So if Jada Byers is not on an NFL training camp roster, especially with a Dallas Cowboys team that can't run worth a doggone, There is a problem. But yes, I wanted to highlight Walter Wilbon because we don't get to talk about Florida Memorial much, who are playing well, by the way. They've strung together some wins, and Bobby Rome, shout out to him. He's got this team playing inspired football, and Walter Wilbon, it starts and ends with him.
Yeah, I agree with all those points except for the last one you made about making the Cowboys having a good running back. We don't care about the Cowboys being good or not. I apologize to all the Cowboys friends.
I don't care about if the Cowboys pick them up. I'm saying any NFL team. I just pointed them out because their running game sucks.
Buns.
Yeah, you're right about that. Their running game does suck, but Jada Byers does not suck. So there were a lot of great games over the weekend. Some classics, a lot of conference matchups. The MEAC got started last week, so we're gonna do a weekend rewind. First game up is the FAMU Southern game. FAMU needed to bounce back in a big time way after losing the double digits to JSU the week before, and Southern riding high off their win over Alcorn State has something to prove on Saturday. If they can compete with the big boys, and Florida A&M bullied them for the most part in that game. I was watching that game pretty closely. For the first time all season, nobody could run on FAMU. Southern only had 122 yards rushing on the night, which is the lowest total the FAMU defense have held an opponent all season long. They've been giving up over 200 yards the entire year, but not against Southern. I wrote in my preview for that game that, like, if their defensive front won that battle of the trenches, they would win the game. This is exactly what happened. Despite the fact the offense was a little shaky for most of the game, FAMU's defense, which have been playing well pretty much all season long, save for the running defense, no shutdown, Noah Botton and Keyset and those guys for Southern. So big time bounce back win for them. FAMU still has a glimmer of hope in the SWAC East, despite the fact they still need help. Yes, they got to lose twice and they got to win out, but a good start for them in Southern. They're just in that big pile of mid that is the SWAC West right now. So, fellas, what do we think about this particular game between Southern and FAMU? Starting with Chris.
Southern is not going to get very far without a quarterback. That's really the bottom line in this, because Florida A&M committed to stacking 7 in the box and say, "Hey, try to get by this. We ain't Alcorn. We're not going to give you guys, any glimmer of, daylight. You're going to have to get past these 7 big dogs, or big snakes, as it were. And if you can, more power to you." When you cut a team's rushing total over in half, because remember, the previous week they ran for almost 300 against Alcorn State, Southern did, and you limit them to 122, you're doing some good work in the trenches. And that makes it, and then you're asking Southern to throw the ball, which they have not done well all year. Remember, when Biden left the game in the fourth quarter against Alcorn, T-Set did not attempt to pass in the fourth quarter. So there's questions at the quarterback position, and that's going to hurt Southern. I don't know if it's sooner rather than later. I mean, it might be too late, but it may not be too late, because, Arkansas Pine Bluff is playing some really good football right now. And if by some strange, coincidence, they knock off Alcorn, they knock off Southern, then that means Ken Rashad's wish of the Bayou Classic being great again could still have some legs. But I just feel like, this is more about Southern not having the quarterback situation settled, but credit does go to Florida A&M's defense for getting the job done. You're on mute, buddy.
Every week this happens. So Ken Rashad, your thoughts on like Southern? Did they prove that? Obviously, they didn't prove they could be a SWAC championship contender by losing the FAMU the way they did. But, like, what do you take away from this game? Did the FAMU prove that, hey, like, they still can compete for an East championship despite the fact they need help? So who came out, I guess, more clearly in this one, either FAMU or Southern?
Well, I think James Cozy said it best earlier during the press conference when he said that pretty much for FAMU, the rest of the season is like a playoff. They can't afford any more losses, but yet in the same vein, they need some help, and they need to hope that J State is going to fall, twice along the way, which is a tall order to ask. So, I think that FAMU obviously went into this game with a little bit more urgency. And I say this respectfully, Southern. I mean, look, we've said this all year long about the SWAC West. There is nothing right now there is not one team, even though Southern and Alcorn are tied for first in the SWAC West. There is absolutely nothing that indicates or suggests that Southern and Alcorn could possibly win the SWAC West, especially when Texas Southern is in a shout. I mean, damn, Texas Southern. The Board of Regents might have been on to something.
I told you we need to apologize to him.
I'm not apologizing yet. I'm just saying. Texas Southern is in this thing. Okay. That's just how crazy the SWAC West is right now. So I'm not surprised at the outcome. FAMU is extremely formidable, but they need some help along the way. And I think that the philosophy that James Cozy has implemented up to this point by simply saying this is a playoff, and basically, it's almost as if to say there's no guarantees at this point, but one more loss will likely knock you out. So, they got to keep grinding the rest of the way.
Yeah, Jared Hoffman, your thoughts on this particular game and kind of like directions both teams will now go?
Well, just
Shout
reiterate
out to my man Avis Heath. Is that Avis Heath? What? Hell yeah, it's a Dodger shirt. What do you mean? I've been Dodger since day one, baby. What's up? I bet you like the Lakers now. Well, that's another topic for another day. But anyway, sorry, Jared. Go ahead, man. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. I just think it reiterates what I've been saying all season, that the winner of the SWAC West is winning the SWAC. It just shows that that the SWAC West cannot stack up against the SWAC East. The best of the SWAC West cannot stack up against the best of the SWAC East. Yeah, it's what it is. Like you said, Chris, like their quarterback play is non-existent. They depend too heavily on the running game. And Florida A&M finally woke up and said, all right, we're not defending the run well. Let's buckle down and get to the bottom of this, especially against a Southern team that we know is a heavy run team. And they did a very good job at defending them. Jamari Gassett was incredible. Daniel Richardson was as good as he needed to be. And the defense was the star outside of Jamari Gassett. So I don't think this changed anything that I thought going into the game, which was the SWAC West is not good enough to compete against the SWAC East.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the SWAC East is a better side of that league than the SWAC West is. And all season long, it's kind of played out. And so I don't see that changing as the season goes on, and I don't see that changing once the SWAC championship game happens, whether it be Jack State in it or somebody else in it against whatever team comes out of the SWAC West. Yeah, it's like I said before, a lot of mid in the SWAC West right now, which will get sorted out possibly at the Bayou Classic that Ken Rashad wants to make great again. So we'll see about that.
Texas Southern.
Yeah, man.
Texas
every
Southern.
week. Texas Southern goes into the game not knowing who's going to start and find a way to win. Yeah, it happens that way. The Magic City Classic won third year in a row by Alabama State over Alabama A&M. Now, we were talking about this game as it was happening on Saturday, and Connell Maynard made a decision that one of y'all said to get him fired when he went for it on 4th and short from his own 30-yard line. That ended up not working out so well. Not only did they not get the 4th down conversion, but Bama State scored a touchdown. We've been talking a lot about Connell Maynard's status with Alabama A&M, his propensity to be on the hot seat and surviving. Does losing this game for the 3rd year in a row, in the way he lost this game for the 3rd year in a row, have any type of bearing on whether or not he survives to coach another year at Alabama A&M, starting with Ken?
Well, look, let's keep this real. Connell Maynard losing this game for the 3rd year in a row. I mean, yeah, it's a big game, but I can assure you losing this game for the 3rd year in a row has absolutely nothing, or is a very, very small part of what he's done since he got that contract extension for winning that COVID championship. Okay. And I'm going to sound like a broken record, But we all know what this man said. This man says he gets paid to win SWAC games.
We mention that every show.
But look, but
He
every
said
time,
it. He said
No,
it.
it's always because it's always
every
relevant.
time
That's what I'm saying.
Every time
Yeah.
his name comes up, and we're talking about the future of Alabama A&M football program, and Connell Maynard leading it, you have to bring it up.
Yeah, it's always relevant. That's what I was trying to say.
We already know he's not beating non-SWAC teams, but according to him, that's the reason. I'm not paid. I'm not paid to beat non-SWAC teams. I'm paid to win SWAC games. How many SWAC games has he won so far this year?
One, right?
Against?
But
Okay. So, no, to answer your question, Kendrick, no.
He won actually. Yeah, one game against Bethune-Cookman. You're right. Yeah,
losing the Magic City Classic has nothing to do in the greater scheme of things related to Connell Maynard's future. Now, if for whatever reason he was maybe constantly winning SWAC games and he finishes second in the SWAC East every year, and that one game is due to the fact that he can't win the Magic City Classic, okay, I'll give you that one. But nah, this man is paid to win SWAC games, and he ain't winning no damn SWAC games. Period.
yeah. Chris, your thoughts on all that?
I'm going to disagree with Ken for this reason only. Dr. Paul Bryant has done yeoman's work in taking ownership of the Magic City. A good part of ownership for Magic City Classic. Remember, we ran stories previously in the summer about how Alabama State had withdrawn from, whatever agreements they had before because he felt like they weren't getting their fair share of the pie. So this man has done a ton of work to make sure Alabama A&M is in the best position, not only to win a football game, but to profit from it. Now, yes, I mean, the numbers for the Magic City Classic are outstanding. I mean, 69,000 people went to that game. There was $20 million in revenue that Birmingham, Alabama saw because of this game, which proves the viability of HBCUs always. Wherever we go, we bring the bag with us. But again, it's not just the way. I mean, it's just not that Alabama A&M lost this game. These dudes were 0 for 4 on fourth down until the final minutes of the fourth quarter on the most boneheaded plays possible. We're talking about fourth and 1 from your own 30. 4th and 1 from your own 30. It is still early in the game. There is no reason for you to say, okay, we're going to, roll this out and see what happens. You fumbled the ball on 4th and 1 from your own 30. Help us help you. That's not smart football. And then, another time they went for it on fourth down and it was still fairly, reasonable. The game was still kind of in reach. That pass gets intercepted and Alabama State turns that into a field goal. So I have to say that, and I mean, I'm not going to say that Paul Bryant is immediately going to start looking for a replacement, but I guarantee you the legwork is starting.
Of course.
Because there's no way. I mean, nothing about that game until the final 8 minutes suggested that Alabama A&M is heading in the right direction. But football games are 60 minutes. The first 52, they got drugged up and down that field like Mike Tyson did Mitch Green outside of a Harlem nightclub one time. It was a beat down. And Alabama State has themselves to blame for that because they just let up. And I'm sure Eddie Robinson tore into his team after the fact. But that Alabama A&M team looked outmatched for 52 minutes. Then they finally found a way to score 2 touchdowns and then had another chance and then threw that chance away. So I have to say that, for what Dr. Bryant is doing for that Alabama A&M athletics program and for this team to have egg on its face for the 3rd straight year in the fashion that they have egg on their face, it does not look good for Mr. Maynard. That maroon and silver hot seat, that joint, it's got to be burning his biscuits right about now, buddy.
Well, let me just, and I respect the point, Chris, but let me just simply say this about the point you made about Paul Bryant and the steps that he's made with respect to A&M and the Magic City Classic. Let me just simply say this: win, lose, or draw, A&M's gonna make that money regardless. Now it helps to win it. You want to win that game, but all I'm saying is that Connell Maynard is going to be judged on his entire body of work. And I'm pretty certain there are probably some incentives in his contract to win the Magic City Classic. But baby, I'm just saying, you know, you paid to win SWAC games. I'm just saying. And right now you ain't winning any. So I'll leave it at that. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, Jared. I want to shift to like Alabama State. The team actually won the game. Third year in a row they won the Magic City Classic. Currently, Alabama State is in the second place in the SWAC East. One game behind JSU. They haven't played the Tigers yet. They will later on in the season, so they still got a chance to win that division. Where do you see them going for the rest of the way?
Well, they got to fight for their lives because they got to battle next week, this upcoming weekend against Alcorn State. And even though Alcorn State is a desperate team that's trying to keep themselves in contention in the SWAC West. So I think that, you know, their defense is playing very well. The wide receiver kid, Kareem Key, is playing as good as you can for a guy that's thrusted in the position to having to play at the quarterback position. So I think that their running game is starting to come together pretty well. I mean, of course, you're going to look good against Alabama A&M, but interesting to see how they're going to look when they go up against an Alcorn State defense that's a bit better. You know, so I think they're behind the 8 ball, obviously, because they lost to Florida A&M already, and they still have Jackson State to go. You know, and Jackson State honestly has not played great, but they're playing good enough that they're winning. So you better hope that they haven't peaked by the time that they come around to playing you, because that'll be should they win out leading up to the Alabama State game, that'll be for the division. So I think that they're praying for a miracle. They're praying for two Florida A&M losses, and they're praying for a Jackson State loss. If not, then they'll have to do it. So, yeah, I think they're just in limbo because they've already put themselves behind the 8 ball, but they're playing pretty well, you know, given all the struggles that they went through in the beginning of the season, the Andrew Body injury and everything. So I wouldn't call this season a success for them, but it's the best case scenario given the circumstances.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they've done yeoman's work after the Andrew Body injury because everybody thought, well, this season's over. They end up had to play their third string quarterback who's actually a wide receiver. And he's done fairly well, looked pretty decent. So got them in contention. So Ada Robinson's done a really good job down there in Alabama State. So we'll see how it goes for the rest of them for them the rest of the way. In the last SWAC game I want to talk about, not really the game I want to talk about, but something that happened after the game, more so like today that happened after the game. Grambling and Texas Southern. Texas Southern, as Ken Mashad is perplexed how they actually win games. They beat Grambling State 24-17. Was an ugly offensive showing for Grambling once again. Miles Crawley ended up being injured. According to Mickey Joseph today, he's gonna be out 2 to 3 weeks with the look like a lower leg injury. And Grambling's fallen to last place in the SWAC West, a place that hadn't been very often in their history, but they're there right now. And the prospect of making the Bayou Classic great again is in serious peril because of it. But that's not what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about their head coach and some comments he made today in the SWAC media call that got him fined today. Yes, Mickey Joseph was upset with the officials. He feels like they've been screwed over so many times this season. The great Grambling State University, everybody's daddy, as Ken Rashad said, screwed over by the referees. So he mentioned in the press conference today that referees were kind of in their feelings because Grambling have been penalized so much throughout the season. For people who can't see this on the screen, I'm gonna read it to you. I've just got to see what's going on with these penalties, he said. When I look at the film, it's just not making sense to me. It feels like somebody's been making business decisions with their feelings. As a grown man, I don't know how to get past that with other grown men. Why are they making decisions with their feelings? It puts us in a bad situation. but I've got to be a better head coach. So he's pretty much outlining, hey man, they're out to get us. I don't know why this is happening to us. And he was later asked to explain what he meant by the referees being in their feelings, and this is what he said.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm trying to keep my composure, but I'm better.
Coach, I want you to unwrap that statement you made earlier, making business decisions with their feelings. Help us comprehend that.
I think it's some bullshit calls.
From the referee's standpoint.
Exactly. So they can take it the way they want to take it. They can fire me. They can do what they want. It's some bullshit calls.
And this seems to be consistent against Grambling, or was it just in this game?
Consistently. But that I'll stop right there with that. You know, I know they're going to shoot me a fine. You know, got the money to pay it. So, very.
Thank you, Coach. Good luck this week.
Thank you.
It was a little ambiguous. I'm not sure I know.
Yeah, and Mickey Joseph was fined today by the SWAC $5,000, and apparently Mickey Joseph like, hey, I got the money to pay for it. I don't got to worry about it. As the great Randy Moss said when asked how's he gonna pay for his fine for moving the Green Bay Packers crowd, straight cash, homie. Straight cash, homie. And
Oh my God.
so later on, Mickey Joseph actually came out with a statement following being fined $5,000, and he says this: as the head football coach at Grambling State University, I recognize the responsibility I hold in setting a standard of professionalism and integrity for my program. It is essential that I demonstrate the conduct we expect from our student athletes and staff. I apologize for my remarks during the SWAC coaches call regarding game officials. Moving forward, I am committed to fostering a respectful and collaborative relationship. Jesus Christ, is so PR laden with the SWAC officials to ensure a positive experience for our fans, our players, and the broader community we represent. Mickey Joseph. So, fellas, what do we make of all this yin yang?
Big money.
Go ahead, Chris.
Big Money Mick talking that, you know what, boy? He was hot this morning, and I didn't see the game so I can't really, give much further, context in what he was saying. But when a coach literally, I do want to see there's a comment in the chat that says he was baited. I want to address that really quickly. As a journalist, it is your job to ask somebody what they mean by something if you don't understand it. And the journalist who asked the question, it was fair enough. Can you elaborate on what you mean by people being in their feelings? Because when you say another grown, when Mickey Joseph says, as another grown man, I don't know how to, work that out with other grown men, you would think that maybe he's talking about his players being overly emotional. So the journalist asked, okay, so, who's in their feelings? Is it the refs? And he said, it's some cow dung calls. And when you get a coach that wired up, I mean, yeah, that fine is gonna, oh God, yo,
not a salary, but it's budget. That's crazy.
That's cold blooded. But yeah, I think Israel Carey makes a great point. He's very frustrated that his team has fallen at the bottom of the division. I mean, if you had Tech, I gotta say this as Stephen A. used to say Rashom Nesterovich's name, Texas Southern ahead of Grambling in the SWAC West, I would have said you were crazy, but that is where we are at this point in 2024. I'm sure that's quite frustrating for Coach Joseph. I mean, he's mentioned that the offensive line play has to be better, that his quarterback has to be better. Neither of those things have happened now. His quarterback is injured, so he's got to go with a couple of untested youngsters. So when you ask a guy who's 4-4, which is still better than what Hugh Jackson was at this point last year, so it's not that bad. But when you have a guy who's just frustrated and, looking for answers, the referees are going to catch the brunt of that smoke. So, I mean, yeah, $5,000. I mean, I wouldn't call it excessive, but Charles McCullum had to do something because there's no way that any other coach would look at that press conference and say, "Oh wow, it's open season on referees. Let's go, baby! I got some grievances to air." So yeah, McClellan had to make a statement. And that statement was $5,000, but Big Money Mick got it. You know what I'm saying? He good. So, yeah, but overall, it's probably just a coach that's just looking for answers and just really, really frustrated with the play of his team and the preparation of his staff right now.
Yeah, I also want to go address the "he was baited" comment. If that was bait, that was the easiest bait I've ever seen. That reporter asked the question and he immediately gave that response. Bait, that is not bait. Bait is, I don't want to talk about that right now. Obviously, I'm frustrated. My team's not doing well, but let's keep it going. And then they keep on asking you about it. Not they ask you the question and within a millisecond you respond. That's not bait. So no, that he was not baited. He gladly responded. And he said it with his whole chest. And I can admire that. And he said, I'm going to take that fine. And I admire that. As far as him being frustrated, look, they've lost 3 of their last 4. And they've come by at a margin of 11 points. A combined margin of 11 points. They lost 2 games by 2 points. And they lost to Texas Southern by a touchdown. So, yes, you're right there. But what we also have to take into account is this team is just not playing well enough to win. They're playing just good enough to put them in contention to win the game, but they're not doing enough to put them over the hump. So that could also be a part of the frustration. We all have watched football games and we have seen bad calls happen. They have happened. They're going to continue to happen. Don't let it dictate the outcome of the game is the important point that needs to be made. The problem is that this team is allowing these quote unquote bad calls to dictate the outcome of the game. That's what needs to be figured out. It's not the calls themselves, because there are going to be bad calls and there are bad refs that need to be addressed. And we need to address the bad refereeing that is happening not just in college, but at all levels of sports. And these referees are human, so they're not going to be perfect, but you can't let it dictate the outcome. It's evidenced by these close games that they keep getting themselves into. They have dictated the outcome. And he needs to have more of a conversation with his players than he does with the officials.
Yeah, just for some context, Texas Southern have been penalized. Grambling have been penalized 7 times that game for 104 yards. On the season, Grambling has 66 penalties, which is 13th most in the FCS, and obviously among the leaders in the SWAC. So he's trying to find an answer, like why our team seems to be singled out by officials. But I'm going to address this comment by Spence here. Yes, we all know the SWAC refs are bad. As John Solly once said, refs are bad all over the world. So we already know this. But at the same time, like, they need to be called out from time to time, because officials are the only group of people, not only in college sports, but in pro sports, who aren't often held accountable publicly for the decisions that they make. And when coaches or players call them out, it's them who get fined, not the officials. We always say, well, no, the officials are going to make mistakes, so we can't worry about that. We can worry about that, because these are like game-changing and season-changing calls. And like, if these people are not held to account, then it's going to keep happening. And you're going to have comments like the ones were made by Mickey Joseph today. Like, he was just fed up. I know he's fed up the team lost. He's probably fed up with the way the team has played all season. And he's fed up with the penalties too. But at the same time, these officials, no matter where they from, should be held accountable, because they rarely ever have to speak to the decisions that they make. And so, like, I applaud Mickey Joseph for speaking out. It's rare the coach does that, knowing the fact that there's going to be some monetary penalties if he does it. He said he didn't care, he could pay for it. And so you got to give all kudos to him for like speaking out in that way. Ken Rashad, your thoughts?
Okay. So let me respond to this real quick. I said I wasn't gonna talk about this, but I gotta talk about this real quick. Exactly. I'm glad Perry finally asked a question that I like. Okay, I wasn't gonna say this, and I say this respectfully out of the individuals who are on that call asking questions. Okay, because I'm gonna tell you, Perry bounced back because early in that call, he asked a question to Bubba McDowell about the playoffs. And I'm like, I know you didn't just ask Bubba McDowell about the possibility of making the FCS playoffs in the postseason when they're damn near next to us at the bottom of the SWAC West. You didn't just ask that question, did you? So he gets a pass because he asked a question that led to all of this. Okay, so great point, Sonic Boom C98. All right. Now, with respect to Mickey Joseph, deep down inside, I think Mickey Joseph is just as disappointed as I am because he realizes that he lost to a damn coach selected by the Texas Southern University Board of Regents. It pisses him off as much as it pisses me. So he had to take it out on somebody, damn it. But anyway, okay. So that's another point. Now, in all seriousness, though, blaming the refs for where this team is right now, that's the last thing you need to do now. And I'm not going to really make too much out of this because I get it. This is not the worst thing that we've heard a coach say about officials. I think it's safe to say, and I'm not going to just necessarily put this on SWAC officials, because talk to any particular fan who is a follower of college football, regardless of what conference they play. They can play in the Big Ten. I guarantee you there are some fans who think that their conference referees are the worst in the conference, are the worst in the nation. I guarantee you, talk to anyone that's a fanatic, they'll tell you, Pac-12, well, doesn't exist anymore. Pac-12 officials were bad, though. SEC, Big Ten, ACC, they'll tell you they are the worst in the country. So I get all that. But I will say this, and I've heard coaches say this too, in private conversations, that, you know, every once in a while, man, these officials will get personal and they will do some stuff that they ain't got no business doing. They'll make some calls that shouldn't be made. As a matter of fact, someone talked about it. TC Taylor during the Bethune-Cookman game. I think who was it that ran that ball? Was it they had a touchdown call back, and I think the penalty was sideline interference. And TC Taylor explained that the reason why, it was Irv Mulligan. That's who it was. And that TC Taylor indicated that while the official was running down the field, he accidentally knocked into either a coach or a player or whatever the case may be, and he said that he had to call it. Now, in all fairness, and I think TC Taylor makes a fair point with respect to the fact that, you know, these are student athletes, man, okay? And you ran into someone on the sideline. Now I get it. You got rules. I get that. But in many instances, an official will call a warning, sideline warning, but he goes, I got to call that. Had nothing to do with what was going on the field. And it wasn't as if it was somewhat problematic during the course of the game. I mean, come on, man. You take away a touchdown because you ran into somebody who had too far out in the field. I get it, but still, he didn't have to throw that. So I will say I understand Mickey Joseph's frustration, but ultimately it comes down to this, man. You can't say that. You can't be the head coach of an institution, and I'm not just making this about Graham. You can't be the head coach and say that. And if, for whatever reason, if you do want to express displeasure about the officials, you don't say that. You don't say it that way. You know, be professional. You represent not only yourself, you represent the institution you that employs you, that cuts your check. Now, but again, I'm not going to make a big deal out of it because it happens. But given where Mickey Joseph is at this point, granted, it's his first season. Maybe he had some pretty lofty expectations. He lost his quarterback, had to play, you know, was relying upon QB2, didn't work out for him, had to go to QB3, who, according to him, basically gets no practice time during the course when they're in practice. And for whatever reason, during the course of the game, was actually able to kind of, you know, he managed to find a way to get the offense moving down the field to the extent that they were able to score. Again, it's Texas Southern, but okay, I'm just saying, but it happened. So it didn't need to be said. And if you are going to express displeasure about the officials, you know, you can get fined without using profanity. It wasn't necessary. Okay. But I get it. It happens. It's not the worst thing that's happened. And, you know, I'll leave it at that. But given where this team is right now, blaming the officials, when you put in consideration that you've had some problematic plays with you know, you got a team that's been problematic with penalties, you know, this is not the time to put it all on the officials. But I understand the level of frustration that comes with it.
Yeah, because I remember last year, like Kim and I was talking about why is Grambling penalized so much, even with Hugh Jackson was their coach. This has been a long-standing issue with that football team. I'm not saying it's a conspiracy against Grambling. I don't think it is. I think the officiating could be better. Obviously, we can all see that, but it's more of like, I think if it happens a lot, it's a cultural issue within the football program, continuously leading or among the leaders in penalties every single year. There's something about the coaches coaching and all that, and it stops with the coaches. Like if your team being penalized that much to that degree, then yeah, you got to examine like the things you're doing as head coach and your assistants are doing to make this problem even worse than it already is. So I'll leave it at that. Anybody else got anything to say about this?
Well, since you asked, I do want to respond to one comment. Yes, I'm going to get petty because this person got petty. So let me see if I can find it real quick. Spence Matthews. Graham thought beating Jackson State would make other teams afraid of Graham. Not, Graham, you are who you are.
Uh-oh.
These are your words. Graham, you are who you are. And you know who Grambling is? Your goddamn daddy.
Why would you set yourself up for that?
That was
I'll
on
leave
a
it at
tee. He put that on a tee, and Ken just smacked it 500
You just
feet.
lobbed that up.
Anyway, appreciate your viewership, Spence. I really do.
Oh man, that was.
Don't give him an excuse to even fathom in his brain that somehow Grambling State is the daddy of anybody.
That was
losing to Prairie View and Texas Southern in the same season.
That was a low inside fastball to a left-handed power hitter. Just, oh my God. Why would you do that?
I appreciate you, Spence. I'm just saying, man, it's all love here, man. I love all HBCUs, but now we got a chance to talk a little smack, man. It's all good. But look, hey, but you guys have turned it around since then. I can't take it away from you, and I don't see you guys losing it. So it'll probably be Jackson State in the East against Texas Southern in the West. Wouldn't that be something? Oh my God. Anyway.
It would be.
Anyway.
Yes. Shifting gears now to the MEAC. A couple of games kind of like drew my attention. Just based on the outcomes of them. The first one was a mild surprise. Norfolk State beat Howard. And I'm gonna ask this question: after the 2 seasons Howard had, co-MEAC champions one year and winning the MEAC the following year, they come back. They haven't played as well as they had those previous 2 years. Is it now over for them in the MEAC?
Is it now over for who?
Howard. It's over for them.
Oh.
They haven't looked good.
Mathematically, no. Mathematically, no.
Yeah, mathematically, no. But like, can they recover from this?
I thought they look. I didn't see this coming, but I can't sit up here and tell you that I'm upset because my friend, Big Worm, Dawson Odoms,
Big Dogs.
Behold the green and gold.
He won a big game. I heard that Reggie Flood. He won a big game.
That's all right. He did win a big game. No, I can't sit up here and tell you that I expected it. I don't know why there's a part of me that wants to really give Howard more credit probably than they deserve. There's still a lot of football to play. I still say it's to their benefit and to the MEAC's benefit overall to play so many games early in the season to where you get to about until you get to around week 9 or week 10 and you're just playing conference games. But given what we've seen of Howard up to this point, I can see why there would be a certain level of pessimism about how they're going to finish the rest of the way. We talked about whether or not they could beat Central. I don't know if they can beat Central or South Carolina State at this point, but I think it's safe to say none of us expected them to beat Norfolk State. But my friend Dawson Odoms got it done. He must put in extra time on the electrical machine. I'm just saying.
Big dogs. Larry Scott this morning was unflappable in the MEAC coaches call. He said, we were in the same position a year ago. We were 3-5 last year. We can still win out. He said that there's some things that have to change. You know, they have to be smart on special teams because this is the second weekend in a row that Howard gave up a back-breaking kickoff return for a touchdown. It happened at the end of the third quarter against Tennessee State, and they were up 10-0 against Norfolk going into the locker room, and Norfolk takes the kickoff to end the second quarter back 97 yards for a touchdown. That gives them life. So their special teams have to be better. But Larry Scott was, again, he was unfazed. He was disappointed, but he was unfazed. He said this team was 3-5 last year. You know what happened last year? We just have to tighten up and play some better football. And
Xfinity, you
they can.
so good.
Oh, Xfinity got me again.
Yeah,
man.
you froze, but go ahead.
All right, but yeah, it happened during the coach's call this morning too when I was talking to Chinnis Berry. That was funny. But yes, you're not going to catch this North Carolina Central team slipping. I don't think. I'm sorry. It's just impossible. I mean, maybe South Carolina State beats them and makes this a little more interesting, but I don't think you catch either one of those teams slipping this year. And I don't know if Morgan State can't beat Howard this year, to be quite honest with you, because that defense, you know, it held a team that was averaging 46 points a game coming into that game to 16 points. So, so the MEAC is a lot tougher than everybody gives it credit for. I mean, yes, they should beat Delaware State this weekend, but after that, who knows? But yes, Coach Scott said that everything is still in front of them. So I take him at his word for it.
So he didn't seem phased at all, Chris? Larry Scott thinks that they're ultimately going to prevail?
He does.
Wow.
He does.
Okay.
Yeah, Jared Hoffman, your thoughts on this particular game and whether or not Howard can bounce back?
I think this was not a good showing for Howard. One, the missed opportunities. You get in the red zone multiple times and you end up kicking field goals instead of getting into the end zone. Shannon Sharp, the HBCU great himself, has always said it. You're not going to win games kicking field goals. It's about scoring touchdowns. And when you get inside the red zone, it's about finishing it off and getting inside the end zone. And especially since Norfolk State had multiple possessions where they ended up kicking field goals and missed field goals. So not only are you settling for field goals, but the team that you're playing against settled for field goals and missed. And you're not able. Oh yeah, I missed Freddie Freeman's home run, but anyway, got me all twisted. Talk about the World Series, but anyway, mathematically, technically, they're in the mix. But am I confident that they can beat South Carolina State? Not really. Am I confident they can beat Morgan State? Yes, quite easily. Yes. Do I think that they can beat North Carolina Central?
Easily. Whoa.
No. I'm not confident they can beat North Carolina Central. I'm not confident they can beat South Carolina State. And I think Morgan State's defense is going to give them struggles, even though I think they can beat them. But you're already 2 down with South Carolina State and North Carolina Central. Now, granted, you still got to play, but you put yourself in a situation where you have no choice but to win. And sure, you could beat Delaware State, but you still got South Carolina State and North Carolina Central waiting in the wings. So I think that they're having to play catch up, and they have to do it against teams that are pretty easily better than them. This was their best chance of getting off to a fast start, going into their tougher end of the conference schedule. And yeah, I don't see much of a direction for them to get to the MEAC championship. But Granted, I didn't see them get into the MEAC championship last year. So who knows?
Yeah, and speaking of a team that's going to be competing for MEAC championship, North Carolina Central had, I would say, a scare last week against a pretty tough Morgan State team. As we mentioned, like, they have a really good defense, but not very much for the offense. And for much of that game on Saturday, it was the defensive struggle, and North Carolina just made enough plays on offense to win that game. So, are the Eagles vulnerable, or are they still kind of the team to beat in the MEAC right now? Starting with Chris.
I still think they're the team to beat. I mean, Trey Oliver said it in this week's press conference and in the previous week's press conference when we were previewing the Morgan State matchup that styles make fights. And Morgan State's defense, even though they have not had Eric Hunter all year, they still have Elijah Williams, who he's another one. If he doesn't get training camp looks, then there's a problem, because that young man is a solid defensive tackle that can wreak havoc, and cause all sorts of nightmares. So yeah, that Morgan State team gave them problems, but I still think Central is the better team because they have the experience factor. This is a South Carolina State team that is playing really well, but they have not been in this line of fire. I mean, there might be a handful of guys left from that 2021 team, but there's not that many to offset the guys that are left from 2022 for North Carolina Central. So I still think Central is the better team and they have the experience, but South Carolina State is living a charmed life right now. So that game is going to be closer than people think, but I still think Central is the best bet to win the MEAC.
Yeah, we know they got a game this Thursday on Halloween that we're going to break down later on in the week against a South Carolina State team that is getting better and better and better by the week under Chennis Berry. So, Jared, what chance do you give South Carolina State to win that game and knock off North Carolina Central?
Well, if Jaden Brogdon plays as well as he did this past Saturday, then anything is possible. But if Jamari Taylor plays as well as he did against Morgan down the stretch, then all possibilities are thrown out the window. It's basically it's about who plays better between South Carolina State's defense and North Carolina Central's offense. And my Division II heart wants South Carolina State to prove all these folk that said the SIAC is coming to South Carolina State wrong. I want them to prove y'all wrong, that Division II players can come up to Division I and wreak havoc. But everything is telling me that Jamari Taylor is just playing out of his mind. And North Carolina Central somehow has two players who are competing against each other for the MEAC Offensive Player of the Year, along with Eric Phoenix, who's also in the conversation. But yeah, this North Carolina Central offense, I'm not sure that South Carolina State is going to be able to handle them. But best believe I'm rooting for South Carolina State. Just my biased Division II heart is rooting for them. And did y'all just sorting?
They sure did.
Well, it looks like we're going to have one win at least for the last couple days. Yeah, and speaking of Division II, Jared, the big game in the CIAA this past weekend was held in Winston-Salem State. And for the first time in almost 50 years, Johnson C. Smith, school out of Charlotte, where I am, they beat Winston 27-15 to run their record to 8-0. And it looks like they're the clear runaway top dog in the CIAA. Looks like they're going to play in the championship game coming up in a few weeks. They got two more games left. Jared, I know you watched this game pretty closely. What did you make of the game? And do you think the Golden Bulls can complete the task and run the table in the CIAA?
I just want to say, where's WSS Ram Nation when you need them?
Well, I mean, probably watching the Dodgers-Yankees game. I don't know.
Go ahead, Jared. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think this game was about the missed opportunities for Winston-Salem State. Too many bad penalties and inopportune times on third down when you're about to get the Johnson C. Smith offense off the field. They had an unfortunate mishandled snap that led to a Johnson C. Smith fumble recovery that started the scoring for Johnson C. Smith and eventually led to their win. Johnson C. Smith, the goal is simple. Win against Fayetteville State and you're in. Because if you don't, there's still a chance that Virginia State can get into the CIAA championship game. If Johnson C. Smith loses their last two, Virginia State and Virginia Union win next week and Virginia State beats Virginia Union in the final week, it's Virginia State and Virginia Union in the rematch in Salem. So Johnson C. Smith needs to be locked in on beating Fayetteville State, who, like Winston-Salem State, they have not had much success against. But with the way that Darius Ocean and Brevin Caldwell are playing right now, with the way that defense, Bernari Black is playing right now, the way Jack Smith is playing right now, and Fayetteville State is not the same Fayetteville State who it is now. I mean, it was already official, but it's now officially official that their CIAA championship appearance streak is completely over. But don't think that just because this ain't the same Fayetteville State team that they're not gonna give you problems. So go in there and finish the job, and you'll be on your way to Salem. There's no reason why they shouldn't be in Salem other than them losing focus and not being locked in on the task. So yeah, it's as simple as that for Johnson C. Smith. Win next week and you're in.
Yeah, Chris, do you agree with Jared on that one? If they can play like they've been playing all season, they're going to end up in the title game?
We keep waiting for the other shoe to drop on Johnson C. Smith. But quite frankly,
Right.
it just hasn't dropped. I mean, what can you say? I mean, we thought that they would have problems with Virginia State. They beat Virginia State. We thought they would have problems with Virginia Union. They beat Virginia Union. They have not won in Winston-Salem State, North Carolina, since a thing called disco was the popular trend in music. They did that this past Saturday. I'm not questioning anything Maurice Flowers does. Maurice Flowers could tell me that the sky is orange, and I would agree with him. That's how good he's got this Johnson C. Smith team rolling. And yeah, Fayetteville State is still dangerous, but they got embarrassed by losing to Shaw at the last minute on homecoming last weekend. These ain't the same Broncos. These Broncos then turned into a quarter horse. This is, I mean, yes, they still got to play the game, but I think Johnson C. Smith gets it done. I do think they beat Livingstone in the oldest HBCU matchup to go 10-0. Honestly, if you look at the CIAA standings, CIAA standings right now, it's 3 teams left with a more than 50% chance. It's Johnson C. Smith, Virginia Union, Virginia State. Everybody else already has 2 or 3 losses. So I mean, it's pretty much dead set that either Johnson C. Smith is going to face Virginia State or Virginia Union at this point, as long as they take care of their business. So if that happens, then we have to start questioning if it's going to be harder to beat a team the second time around, which they're going to have to do again, whether it's Union or State. But yeah, I feel like this Johnson C. Smith team, I mean, they've answered every question. Could they compete against the CIAA team? Yes, an SIAC team, excuse me. They've done it. They have beaten everybody in front of them in the CIAA. It doesn't matter who it is. I don't care if it's Bluefield State. I don't care if it's Lincoln or whatever. They've beaten everybody that's in front of them to this point. So I'm done questioning whatever mojo Coach Flowers has, because those guys are believing. Those guys are playing some really good football. I think people are thrown off because the scores are close, but you're still 1 point better at minimum than the team you've played every time you set on the field this year. So I'm done questioning Johnson C. Smith. I think they get it done.
So go ahead, Jared. I'm sorry.
I'm just tired of everybody every single week being like, I need to see Johnson C. Smith beat this team. When they beat Virginia Union, I was sold. Remember, we did the show and said Johnson C. Smith is the best team in HBCU football, in Division II HBCU football. I was sold then. Everybody said, well, if they beat Virginia State, they legit. If they beat Shaw, they legit. If they beat Winston-Salem State, they legit. Well, what's next? Who else they got to play? You want them to play USC next? You want to play Alabama next? Who else they got?
They probably beat USC this year.
Wow.
To be honest with you.
Wow.
Like, I'm like, give them their credit where it's due. They showed you they had potential last year, and they have only just continued to grow this year. They are it. They are it right now. The question, and I'm wondering, is will they get a first round bye in the D2 playoffs? Because if you look at the Super Region 2, it's stacked with teams that could potentially get that first round bye with Carson Newman and Valdosta State that could potentially be that number 1 seed. And we could potentially have 3 HBCUs in the D2 tournament. Unfortunately, West Virginia State, they're out of contention in the Mountain East. They lost badly to UNC Pembroke. But if Johnson C. Smith and Virginia Union both make it to the CIAA championship game, no matter the result of that, both teams could potentially see themselves in the D2 tournament. And of course, whoever wins the SIAC most likely is going to be Miles. They'll be in the D2 tournament. So I'm excited about the outlook of the amount of teams that could potentially be in the D2 tournament. And I like Johnson C. Smith's chances to potentially win a game in the D2 tournament, should they be a number 1 seed, or even if they're hosting a game. I like their chances of being a dark horse team to make it through the region.
So let me ask this real quick, because earlier this year we were jokingly, but I think seriously, saying that a lot of teams, a lot of Division I teams should have Teddy Keaton's number on speed dial. Should the same be said about Maurice Flowers?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they should have DC Barry Tripp on speed dial too, because that defense that he built is a juggernaut. So they better have Maurice and Barry Tripp on speed dial. I wholeheartedly think that Barry Tripp could be a anywhere as a team's DC. Absolutely.
Go ahead, Chris. You was about to say something?
Was I? I guess my face was just like, yeah, but I mean, I would have to say so. I mean, this is a Johnson C. Smith team that has not had a season this successful in 52 years. Only one person on this program was around in 1972. And it's not the one talking. It's not the one underneath me. And it's not the one to my right, underneath me to my right. I mean, we're talking about a program that is just said Alabama A&M will need a coach. So.
Wow.
I mean,
the question is, would Maurice Flowers even want that job?
Depends on what else becomes available, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's still, I'm not privy to any information, but there might be one opening in Dover. I mean
already?
Wow.
I mean,
already?
I don't know. I mean, all I'm going to say is, I've gotten phone calls, and I will leave it at that because I'm still working on some things.
Might be one opening in Greensboro.
I was just about to say.
Oh yeah,
just about to say.
And I feel like that would be a perfect fit for Maurice Flowers because he already knows North Carolina.
Yeah.
So if he's willing to recruit guys to come to Johnson C. Smith, and those guys are, not willing to go to a school that hadn't had success in generations, then he could absolutely make A&T great again. Make no mistake about it. So, but I think Maurice Flowers absolutely will get some, him and Teddy Keaton both. I mean, again, this is the most wins Clark has had in 50 years. So what is it about the 70s and certain D2 programs? I mean, what happened? Oh yeah, I know what happened. Sorry, y'all. I hate to get political on y'all, but y'all already know what I'm about to say. Desegregation.
Yeah. There you go.
When Bear Bryant got his butt handed to him by Sam Cunningham and USC, who of course the late Sam Cunningham, who was Randall Cunningham's older brother, Paul Bryant said, "I need some of these Negroes on my football team." So that's how you got the breakdown of kids that would have gone to the SWAC in the 70s and 80s and the 90s and the MEAC and the CIAA and the SIAC. They start going to these PWIs and programs now because desegregation, and I'm going to take the hit for this. I mean, this is the opinions of Chris Stevens are not those represented by those of HBCU Sports. So I just want to make that clear. Desegregation was the worst thing that could possibly happen to HBCUs and Black life in general. I just need to make that really, really quickly. James, integration hurt HBCU football, all of us. Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like people misunderstood Brown versus Board of Education. Or I can say it as the great Don D.C. Curry said on Common View one of those years. It was about we shall overcome, not we shall come over. We wanted equal resources to what white institutions were getting, and people misunderstood Brown versus Board of Education. Said, "Oh, our white kids can hold hands with our black kids in the school." No, we just wanted the same stuff y'all got. So that was kind of misrepresented. And of course, with desegregation and integration, taking the light off of HBCUs and having those young men being exposed to different programs. So yeah, that's why we're talking about schools that haven't had, these great seasons since the 70s, because they were siphoned. They had kids siphoned from them. So yes, sorry to get political on y'all, but I just had to make that point really, really quickly.
Always cool, Chris. Anytime we can educate the people, man, take advantage of it.
Yeah, that's all I got. I mean, I feel like Maurice Flowers absolutely deserves the job, whether it's in Dover, Delaware, or Greensboro. He'll be great.
Yeah, living out here in North Carolina, man, you being not familiar with the area, after living in Chicago and other places over the years, like, you realize like there's a lot of talent for high school football out here, despite the fact you don't get the same notoriety as Texas or Florida or even California or Georgia. A lot of good kids this way, and John C. Smith and a lot of schools in this area are taking advantage of it. And I think like if Flowers is able to go to a Division I school, he'll kill it. The talent that's around here, especially in North Carolina.
Real quick, since Chris brought up that the story about USC and Alabama, there is a documentary about that game in which it was indicated that when the Alabama fans were walking into the stadium, they noticed all of these black players warming up for USC, and according to the documentary, one guy looked at another one and said, "Hey, I thought we were playing USC. It looks like we're playing Grambling." Just thought I want to put that in there. Anyway.
I wonder why you wanted to say that.
I'm just reporting what was discussed in the documentary.
It's funny you say that because like in the 80s, early 90s, the Georgetown men's basketball team led by the late great John Thompson, when they were good, the whole phrase of Hoya paranoia came out, because like this team for the black players, there were a lot of people who thought like they were HBCU because they had so many black players in their school. So it's not the first time this happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Ken, say the thing you say at the end of the show to let people know how to donate money to us to pay your salary.
Hey guys, look, Kendrick needs to hire a nanny, and we really need your support. Okay, seriously. There are a number of ways to donate. You can go to HBCU Sports /donate and donate via the website. You can also become a member and become a level 1, a level 2, a level 3 supporter, and be eligible to receive a number of perks that you will be privileged to receive. And by all means, feel free to donate via Super Chat during our live shows. And look, whatever you do, go a long ways in supporting the channel. And as I indicated before, helping Kendrick find a nanny for the little one so we can do these shows.
Wow, you really went there, didn't you?
Hey man, I'm just saying, you talked about my salary. I mean, we got to talk about yours too. Look, we're all in this together. I understand.
Okay. Whatever you say, boss man, in this together. Okay. I'm Kendrick. That's Jared Hoffman. That's the Dodger fan, Ken Rashad. He's Chris Stevens, who's 69 something. I don't know. We'll see you Wednesday. Round table will break down. I need to move to my aunt's house. No, man, I'm good enough. Like Mickey Joe said, I got money. I can pay for it.
Big Money K. We got Big Money Mick and Big Money K.
I know, man.
All right.
I can do some things. So yeah, like we're gonna be back Wednesday night with a round table. The full crew, save for Jared Hoffman, who's gonna be away working for the man on Wednesday. We're gonna break down some of these football games happening this weekend, and the big one on Thursday night between South Carolina State and North Carolina Central. And we're gonna get into our off topic, which I don't know what it is right now, but it'll be something that would be very interesting, I think. So thanks for watching, and see you guys on Wednesday.